Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I love being a Queenslander. I love our state. We have great beaches, we have great farmland and landscapes, and thank you, Senator O'Sullivan, for your warm support. We have people who are never backwards and coming forwards and telling us politicians to get back in our box. But we have glorious weather, we have Bundaberg Run, we have everything going for us. And I was up in Townsville on the weekend with the State Council of the Liberal National Party, and it was a very good meeting. We had lots of motions debated and passed. And it came to me when Campbell Newman was speaking that we actually have one of the best governments in Australia, if not the best government in Australia, with a fantastic Liberal National Party government. You knew, through you, Madam Acting Deputy President, you knew it was coming, you knew where I was going to go. Disappointed that you waited so long. You know, the list of the Newman government's positive achievements since their election in March 2012, there's so many of them. I could talk all night on the wonderful achievements of the Newman government. So please bear with me as I give you some highlights of the achievements of this great government. But before I do that, because I know the Labor senators want me to do this, let's before I get to Campbell and his government, let's talk about the Labor Party. Let's talk about their little box of secrets, their esky of badness, their chili bin of truth in terms of what is the truth about the Labor Party in Queensland. Because Labor have squandered, Madam Acting Deputy President. Labor have squandered the last 2.5 years. They've squandered the last 2.5 years. Instead of coming up with policies and ideas, you know what Labor in Queensland have done? They've stood to the sidelines carping. They're experts in naysaying, whinging and scaremongering. And Madam Acting Deputy President, no one likes a whiner. But I tell you what, the Labor Party in Queensland, they're good at whining because that's all they do. They've opposed every reform of the Liberal National Party. They don't stand for paying off the debt. It's the blinky bill of Queensland politics. Someone will come along with the magic pudding. Someone will come along with the magic pudding and pay it all off. You won't. The Labor Party in Queensland will not take the tough decisions with their mix of voodoo-hoodoo economics. You're led by the leader of no, the captain of negativity, Anastasia Palaszczuk. The Australian Labor Party's state representative have given Queenslanders nothing to vote for. Queenslanders should not be fooled.
Order.
I'm not quite sure that's the truth, the whole truth, and not the truth. But nonetheless, order, senators, and Senator McGrath has the call.
Madam Acting President, I'd love some good interjections, but we've just got lots of noise at the moment. So please put us some good interjections. Tell me some reasons, Madam Acting President, why the Labor Party in Queensland should be defended. Now, Queenslanders should not be fooled. A vote for the ALP is a vote for no new ideas, no new plans, and a number of recycled MPs who were turfed out at the last election. These MPs who in 2009 who lied and fibbed their way back into office. They promised not to sell assets, Madam Acting Deputy President. They promised, Anna Bligh and the Labor Party said, we will not sell any assets. Guess what they did? But the day after, the Sunday after the election, there was an ad in the Sunday Mail selling the assets of Queensland. People in Queensland should not trust the Labor Party. And let's talk about the election campaign in 2012. I do have a conflict of interest here. I was involved with that campaign where Labor MPs and Labor headquarters ran one of the most despicable, dirty campaigns in Australian political history, where they targeted the wife of the leader of the Liberal National Party. So instead of talking about policies and let's talk about issues, they targeted Lisa Newman. Shame on the Queensland Labor Party. And what is disappointing? Madam Acting Deputy President, I know you'll be interested to know that Labor have not learnt. Labor have not learnt. They'll do anything and they'll say anything. They'll get into bed with the Greens. They'll get into bed with Palmer and the United Palmer Party. They'll get into bed with Cattle. They'll get into bed with anyone to get back into power. This is the modern Labor Party in Queensland. Now, in uncertain times like this is when Queensland needs a strong team with a strong plan for Queensland, for a stronger Queensland. Because one of the things that Campbell and the government in Queensland have done is they have a 30-year plan for the future, a 30-year plan. Name me one government in Australia that has sat down with the people of their state or their territory and said, let's have a long-term plan of where we see this state going. The government of Queensland undertook a massive consultation exercise with community representatives and sat down and went, where do we see this state in 30 years' time? Because Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I tell you what, Campbell Newman and the government in Queensland, what they're doing is they've got a plan to make sure that the state of Queensland has a strong direction in terms of looking after public services, making sure the economy is looked after, and that Queensland knows where it's going. Now, we could talk about job creation. 44,000 new jobs created since the 2012 election. In Queensland, we've created over half the new jobs that have been created in Australia since 2012. And this hasn't happened by chance, because there's a strong team in Queensland. We've got Australia's, I think Australia's best treasurer is Tim Nichols, a fantastic treasurer. Australia's best premier, and Jeff Seeney as deputy premier, driving infrastructure, making sure that we've got the roads and the bridges of the 21st century in Queensland. Because where Labor will go very quiet is when we come to debt, because Labor don't like talking about debt. It's sort of like the elephant in the room for them. And I challenge any Labor senators who are in the chamber tonight to tell me how much, after 20 years of Labor government, how much debt was left in Queensland. What is the interest bill? Lots. It's going to end up being $85 billion worth of debt.
Order, senators.
$85 billion.
Senator, please take your seat. We just could do a little more calm in the chamber here for this speech. A bit more respect for the senator speaking. Senator McGrath has the call. Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. 20 years of Labor. 20 years of Labor. I hear the phrase comedy hour. I tell you, the debt of Queensland is not a laughing matter. You know what it is? An annual interest bill of $4 billion. Labor, people listening at home, fellow Queenslanders, Labor think that your debt, $4 billion annual interest bill, a debt that's going to hit $85 billion, or actually would have hit $85 billion under Labor, is a laughing matter. Because the issue with debt is it means when you're paying off the interest bill, you're not putting money into public services. You're not putting money into schools and education. So what we've got to do in Queensland, like what we've got to do federally, is we've got to make sure, Madam Acting President, that we get the economy and the debt back under control so we can put more money into the health system. We can put more money into the education system. And we can stop wasting money on government expenditure that is not needed. Now, in the final 10 years of Labor's reign, and it was a reign in Queensland, the Labor Party, set themselves up as this sort of, almost one-party state, because sometimes my side of politics weren't particularly flash at winning elections. And Labor ran this one-party state in Queensland, where in the last 10 years, government expenditure increased by an average of 8.9% a year. 8.9% a year is how much government expenditure went up each year. Now, from 2011, 2012 to 2013, 2014, it increased by just 1.2% a year. 1.2% a year. Now you're going to think, and so what Labor normally say is we hear things talking about how much the impact upon services. Well, let's talk about the dental waiting list. Let's talk about the money we put into services. How many people were on the dental waiting list when Labor were turfed out in 2012? I'll tell you. Here it is. I'll just pick it up for you. 61,405 according to my notes I was writing before. You know how many people are on the dental waiting list now? None. Zero. There's no people on the dental waiting list. Ambulance response times, down. Things like that. In terms of another 100 frontline stuff. Let's talk about violent crime in the Gold Coast. Let's talk about the war on bikies. Let's talk about the war on those outlaw motorbike gangs. Let's talk about the crime on the Gold Coast. Since Campbell Newman, the government, and Jared Blay, the Attorney General, took the Vlad laws, took these anti-criminal gang bike laws through Parliament, opposed by Labor, opposed by the Independents and all the other sooks around this place. And you know what's happened? You know what's happened in the sorry, Senator Lionel. You know what's happened on the Gold Coast? Crime has plummeted. Crime has gone down by, I think it's about 40%, it's gone massively through the floor. It's almost a crime scene. It's that fantastic in terms of what has happened to crime on the Gold Coast. I can tell you, people love it. The schoolies of the Gold Coast can feel safe because you know what? They're not being preyed upon by drug-pushing bikies. And that's a good thing for mums and dads listening. Send your kids to Queensland. Campbell Newman did it, Senator O'Sullivan. Campbell Newman did it. And this is a good thing. This government is a government that has delivered. It's actually delivered a greater budget to the health budget. It's delivered a greater budget in terms of fighting crime, in terms of 800 extra police on the beat. This is police in uniforms out there arresting these criminals. But if you want to listen to the Labor Party and the Greens and their friends in the hippie movement, it's all about protecting the bikies. Well, we're about protecting families, we're about protecting the economy of Queensland and making sure there are jobs for Queenslanders, the Queenslanders get the training and the education. So, because Queensland, guess what, it is the best state in the country.
Time has expired.